Hey girlfriends. Welcome back to another episode of Shameless Ambition, the podcast. I'm Lynsey Justine.
I'm Justine Eno.
And this week we are going to celebrate the theme of love and relationships in honor of Valentine's Day. So by the time this podcast airs, it will be past Valentine's Day, but as of this recording, Valentine's Day is tomorrow. Yeah. So we are in the unique, position of having been with our partners since we were like 20 years old. And I just think that's so crazy.
I mean, I think the first couple of years went by really slow. People be like, how long have you been together? And you're like, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. But now when people are like, how long have you and Tyler been together? And I'm like, 13 years. I'm like,
right?
Whoa.
Yeah.
It's like,
Seems like a big number. And I'm 5 years older than you. So Mike and I are going on 18 years this year. But I think it's so amazing to have a partner in life. And especially as an ambitious woman who has big dreams and big goals, to be able to share the journey with somebody who I consider to be my soulmate is really such an incredible feeling.
Yeah, so first and foremost, I want to say, I know I'm speaking for you, but I know this to be true. But we're very lucky to have been able to have found our people early in life. But there's also been a lot of hard work from my side. I can say, I won't speak for you on
girlfriend.
This. But there's been a lot of hard work where I think that we could have called it quits and we didn't, because we love each other and we decided to put the work in. And obviously we're going to get into all of the nitty gritty of the stuff today, but there's no one else I would have rather done this journey with up to this point and continuing on. But it's taken work on both my part and his part for sure to keep it going.
I honestly think every relationship takes so much work, and if you're in a relationship that you feel is effortless, good for you. But I totally agree. It takes so much resilience as a couple and grit as a team and determination to continue that commitment to each other. And I don't think that any successful marriage lasts a lifetime, or as long as they do, without that kind of effort and energy on an ongoing and consistent basis.
Yeah, so I can remember back to, so when Tyler and I first met, he was working away, like lots of oil and gas workers do. He was doing hitches, so he'd be gone for 2 or 3 weeks. He was working in the States, so he'd be gone and then come home for a week or two. And I remember it was about 4 or 5 months in, and I was just like, no, this isn't working for me. No, this isn't going to work. And so he found a different area to work in, but we sat and we had this conversation. And it was a really deep conversation, especially for me. I was 20. So it was probably one of the biggest conversations of my life. But we sat there and we promised each other, wholeheartedly, I've never felt something so authentic of ride or die.
Yeah.
This is it. We're deciding, it wasn't a proposal, but we decided in that moment that this was it. And we were going to, no matter what, not give up on each other. And no matter each other's failures, we were going to stick by each other. And from my past and coming from my parents' divorce, I didn't really trust in relationships. So having that conversation with him and him knowing that he was going to love me unconditionally, even though I was going to mess up, allowed me to really lean in to being in our relationship.
Oh, I think that's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you guys chose each other that day and have continued to choose each other day in and day out ever since. And I mean, I feel so fortunate to be a personal life witness to your relationship because you guys have a really special connection, and it is,
I'm they're my couple goals.
I mean, it's so nice when you're a happy couple to hang out with other happy couples and to know that you're with other people that understand the commitment and growth that it takes. I think that I feel so fortunate to have so many other couple friends in my life that I can confide in about the challenges of making it all work and how we grow and change as people. And I think one thing that's really unique when you're with somebody from such a young age, like we were at 20, you really grow up together. And
you were completely different people.
I'm a completely different person than I was when I was 20. And so the fact that that we're continuing to choose our partners every day just goes to show that we're growing together.
Yeah. And I mean, you have to be really understanding, right? Of like, people grow at different paces. They grow at different times in their life. If you and your partner are different ages, like, there's different things that all come into play in growth. So one may be growing and one may be not, or you might be both growing at the same time. But at the root of it for me is, and please, like, me and my marriage have to work on this daily, but it's communication. And really just like trying to be as authentic and honest with your partner with where you're at and receiving that back from them of where they're at. Because it's never linear, right? So
well, and isn't that so mind-blowing when you're able to effectively communicate with your partner and you're like, holy man, that was so much easier.
I mean, so like,
why didn't I do this all the
again,
time?
Ty and I have a really hard time communicating. I'm not gonna lie. This is it's a struggle that we have. He goes to anger really, really quick, and not towards me ever, but he just gets defensive and angry and usually has to go work out to blow off some steam.
It's a good way to blow off
and
steam.
I cry.
Oh,
so they're like,
surprise.
Right. They're like, well, I actually usually yell and get angry first, and then I realize I'm not actually angry. I'm just hurting, and then I cry.
Right.
So, but we're working on it. 13 years in, we can at least understand each other now. When, like, even it was the other day, and Tyler posted about this, so I don't even feel shameful at all in sharing this, but we had a little bit of an issue, and so he's been really busy working. So I wrote him a letter because I needed him to hear one conversation from me without being interrupted. I needed to hear all of the thoughts without him interrupting his phone, kids, whatever. And so I'm like, letter. And I actually messaged Lynn's and told her, and she's like, hopefully it goes well. And I'm like, oh. Here's hoping.
Good luck, buddy.
But I know his instant response, and his instant response was defensiveness and anger. He went and worked out. He sent me like a letter back in text message form, and we kind of cleared the air. We didn't really actually talk about it after, but just having that, I read his letter, he read mine.
Yeah.
Cool. We know where each other are at now. But at least we are predictable. Yeah. Right? And we can understand, like, he knows when I just go into the closet and cry. He's like, she just needs, like, him coming in there isn't going to do anything. So we can at least understand each other after being together so long, to not take it personally and just,
Well, and that's just it. I think everybody has different ways of just handling confrontation and arguments and stress and anger and resentment and whatever you're going through in your relationship. But when we give each other the space to process the way that we need to process, that makes a huge difference. And this is something that Mike and I learned from some pretty deep therapy a couple years ago, was that if we need to walk away from the conversation for 20 minutes, half an hour, 2 hours, whatever the case may be, walk away from it and just take your time, take a breather.
Always go back. But
always go back. But it's just like, walk away from each other knowing that you're safe. Nothing's going to happen in these 2 hours other than you guys just chilling out. You're going to calm down. That's what's going to happen. I've never been a big proponent of the marriage advice of never go to bed angry.
Oh God. Well, I mean, I can't.
I don't
go
know.
to bed angry
I feel
I don't
like
even know.
In our early years, Mike and I had so many angry late night alcohol fueled spats that we should have just gone to bed. And every single morning, the next morning, we would wake up and be like, why were we so mean to each other? That was so dumb. And it's just like, A, I've learned to not fight with my spouse when I've had a few drinks. But also, B, if we just can't get it under control, let's go to sleep. Let's go to bed. And tomorrow's a brand new day, and we will wake up, be kinder to each other, and have better communication. And so...
The power of 24 hours, I mean, we've talked about, but I mean,
big
maybe
difference maker.
Shut down the time frame of 24 hours if it's with your spouse, because that's quite a while to, but
not
still, like, give it time, you have to let things calm down. And I mean, especially if you're an emotional person like I am, things when they first come flooding in can be a lot more heightened than they need to be. Like, or you take it a lot more personal than you need to. And you really need to, like, call a friend or go take some time to get that, like, little bit of reality check or to clear your mind.
Totally.
So, yeah, that's communication. So I feel like that's super fundamental in a long relationship.
It's entirely fundamental in a long relationship.
Yeah.
I feel like we both have some pretty big thoughts we want to share in this conversation. But
yeah, it's going to go...
dive a little more deep into it, I would love for you to share how you and Ty met.
Oh,
let's get
so
to know
bad.
early Ty and Justine. Let's hear the story.
Okay, I'll go, like, since we're podcasting, I'll go real deep with it, but I'll try to short story it. I actually, the first time Tyler and I met, I was dating his best friend. Yeah, but it was in a parking lot, and I don't know, like, he had to give him his hat back or something. I don't know. It was like, I didn't actually really meet him. He seen me in the car, and he told me that he's like, you were wearing a really ugly hat, and I didn't think you were very cute. Fast forward a few months,
Tell
Tyler,
me how you really feel.
Right, Tyler went to work, and his best friend and I, we dated for like 2 months. It was nothing. And then I just kind of never was around their group of friends again, and then I was working, and I guess Ty came in and seen me, and I didn't see him. I guess I served him some wings and I don't know. I don't remember it. But he says that he fell in love with me in that moment, and he had to go back to work, and he couldn't stop thinking about me the entire time he was away at work.
Aww.
So when he came back from Montana, the first thing he did was come back to Beau's and sit in my section. But he brought his best friend, who I dated, so it was really awkward. And then his best friend walked out on his tab.
Oh, perfect.
Just to be a dick.
Yeah.
And Tyler paid it. So I was like, okay, he might be
an okay guy.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. But then he got drunk and asked for my phone number, and I was like, no. And so then he started breakdancing in the middle of Beau's, which if you live in Central Alberta, in Red Deer, you know Beau's Bar and Grill is pretty happening place. So he was breakdancing in front of like 100 people, and it's bad. Like... It wasn't good breakdancing.
Oh my
like,
God, I wish I could have been there.
It was
that
really
night.
bad.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not going to stop until you give me your phone number. And I was like, okay, fine, dude. Here's my phone number.
Man, just breakdancing for love.
But wait, it gets better. So I don't hear anything from him. I'm like, whatever. And the next day, it was like in the evening, I get a Facebook message from him. He's like, hey, I lost your number, but I found you on Facebook. And then he's like, would you like to go on a date? And we went on a date the next day, and I said I wasn't going to sleep with him that night, so I slept with him in the morning and sealed the deal. And it's been history since then. Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much.
Yeah, but I mean, definitely like a couple ups and downs, and I think we broke up a few times for like, you know, a month or a couple weeks, but we always found each other again. No matter it was me finding him or him finding me, we always found our way back to each other, so...
Oh, it's like, you know, tractor beams just sucking each other right in and just love at first sight. That's adorable.
Yeah, okay, and now your turn. The story of Lynsey and Mike D.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, I met my husband when I was 14 years old. So, if you would have told 14-year-old Lynsey that I was going to marry Mike D, I would have told you were out of your mind. That this man was totally out of my league. That was never going to happen. But
he was friends with your brother,
He was friends with my older brother, and his parents managed the ski hill here in Grand Prairie for like 16 years before my parents took over and managed the ski hills. So we both really grew up there and just had a really strong attachment to the ski hill, and he was the guy who like just represented snowboarding.
Was he as cool back then as he is now?
I mean, he's pretty cool now, but like he was so cool back then. And like he was the guy on the hill in all the latest gear, so stylish, so, you know, just flashy. And one thing about Mike is he has this gorgeous smile. Like his teeth are perfect, sure. And he is the most handsome ginger on the face of the planet. So he literally just sparkles when he walks into a room, and I just was always so taken aback by him and his charm and the sound of his voice. Everything about him just oozed cool.
And he's really kind.
And he's so kind and sweet and genuine. But, I mean, he was dating somebody else at the time, and he was 3 years older than me, so we didn't really hang out in the same social circles, like you had kind of mentioned age earlier. And when I was obviously 14, 15, and he's 17, 18. Like, that's a big age gap at that time. But, you know, not unlike you and Ty, we kind of just were always so naturally attracted to each other. And as we got older and things changed, and him and his girlfriend broke up, and I dated a few random dudes, and we found our way to each other and have been together. Well, I guess when we first dated, I was 19 years old, and then we broke up for a little bit. But yeah, it just... I was always so attracted to his personality, his authenticity. I just wanted to be around him, and we've spent the last 18 years making so many incredible memories and working so hard for this life together. Like, it has definitely not always been easy, but we've still had a lot of fun along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, to look back, it's crazy, right? To think of, like, when we first met our partners and we seem like
how
such
young
babies.
we were. Totally right. Like,
yeah.
such babies.
I don't, yeah. Yeah. And then how old were you when you got pregnant with Soph?
I got married when I was 25, and I had Sophia when I was 27. No, when I was 26.
Yeah. So, and then we were married at 24. We did it taboo. So we had Ari at 23 and got married at 24. But even like having babies young, you know, like, it's a lot. So, and it's a lot on a relationship. Like, if you really want to dive into what children add to that. But, yeah.
Were you guys always on the same page, though, of wanting kids? No?
No, I remember, like 3 months before I got pregnant with Aria, maybe half a year, I actually remember sitting vividly in a steam bath with Tyler telling him I didn't want kids.
Oh, wow.
Thinking, like, I was like, no, I don't really think I want to be a mom. I mean,
to my
girls who are listening to this now, I love being your mom, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. No, I think at the time, honestly, my mom and I were going through a lot of stuff.
Oh.
And I just didn't see that in myself then. I had a lot of growing up to do, and getting pregnant did that, like, instantly. It's like, oh shit, okay, time to grow up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I wouldn't take any of it back, but I just didn't think I was gonna have kids. Like, way too personal, but we had also been, like, having unprotected sex for a while, and it just wasn't happening. So I was like, maybe it's just not in the cards, right? So that's kind of where I was at with it. And then, yeah, a couple months later, we got pregnant with Aria. But Tyler always wanted to be a dad. Right. He can, like, remember back to being, like, 5-6 years old and wanting to be a dad. So I couldn't imagine him not a dad.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Like, I can't
either.
Yeah, I can't imagine us being dinks. I do know what that is.
I only just heard that term like 2 weeks ago. Yeah. I had to ask Emma, and she's like, dual income, no kids. And I was like, what?
Yeah. They are dinks. No,
imagine, though, if we were. Like,
I know.
All the cool things we could have done. But our children are
the
gift.
Cool things.
Yeah,
they're the cool things
we've done. That's right.
Yeah. And you guys always kind of
thankfully, Mike and I were always incredibly aligned. We come from incredibly similar family backgrounds. Well, I mean, we're just really lucky. Like, both sets of our parents are still married in their 40th somethingth year. We both have 2 siblings. We both have large extended families. We just kind of... we were just drawn to each other in that aspect, and we always knew that we were going to be parents. Like, I remember about 5 months after we got married, we were on a New Year's trip to Golden with a bunch of our friends, and one of my girlfriends at the time was pregnant, and I was so jealous. Oh my God, was I jealous. I was just like, I want to be pregnant. I'm married. Like, I get to start a family, and, like, I want to do this now. And it took us, like, I don't know, 3-4 months once we started trying with Sophia. But yeah, it just, like, there was never a shadow of a doubt in our mind. We knew we were going to have 2 kids, and that's
what you got.
What we got. Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, I have this in my notes, and it's kind of just like a nice little segue into it, but it's also, like, important, even just in our 2 stories that we just shared, of knowing how your partner grew up. And the kind of baggage that they're bringing with them. And I don't mean that at all nasty to my in-laws or to my family. Tyler and I have a lot more trauma in our childhoods based around our parents being divorced. Lots of times, like, one of the parent wasn't always there. So we carried that into our relationship, right? We had a little bit of trust issues maybe that weren't even each other, like against each other, but just against love and marriage and like that it would work. So you also have to like kind of remember that going into your relationship as well, is giving your partner some understanding for the hard wiring that they may have not done.
Well, and I think that extends to all aspects of life, in the sense of just like conditioning, of just looking at a person and understanding why they are the way that they are, and whether that came down to their family or their socioeconomic class or a traumatic experience they had, or there's so many different factors that influence why we do the things that we do, and why we act the way that we act. And so I think that to look into why somebody is that way is such a act of love.
Well, and then when you, like, I was talking to Mallory about this today, actually, when we were on the phone, and you go into like a fight or flight situation, or say you're a little intoxicated, so you don't necessarily have all your, black lines there. You go back to what is like originally hardwired in you, right? So like that's just our innate thing. And we've talked about rewiring the brain and like how to retrack those, steps and like make your own person and all those things. But you do have to remember that when you're in that state, lots of times you do just naturally go down that path. So, but it's the beauty you can recognize of like, we have our parents and they did our best as we are doing our best as parents. We all make mistakes, but we get to see the mistakes they did. We actually get to see it. We get to see how it played out. So if you don't want to make it, then don't, right? We get to be fortunate enough to see that. And I say that with all the love to my parents, because we all make mistakes. It's inevitable. So it's just which ones you make.
Well, it's self-awareness, right? And I think that we're living in this cool culture where people are talking about it so much more, and we're having these conversations about the generational differences that have happened over time, and our parents having grown up a very different way than we grew up. We grew up a very different way than our children are growing up. 100%. And to acknowledge these factors that are just totally outside our control, and how they apply to a person, how they've affected a person. That level of self-awareness is truly what's making the growth happen. And I think that I only realized how important that was in the last few years, and just really starting to become aware of why I'm doing things, and is it really the right decision, and how could I be kinder or more accommodating in any certain given situation with Mike, and knowing that it's like the ultimate goal is a happy spouse and a happy house. And I just think that when we give each other that kind of consideration and time and attention, it just makes such a world of difference. So
for me, there was a concept of duality, and I don't even remember where I heard it, if it was a therapist I was talking, I don't remember, but I remember having this switch in my brain, and it really helped in Ty and I's relationship, and with me trying to help him understand communication. But there's a duality to almost every situation, especially with your partner. Right. So when you come to your partner, and I'll just use me as an example because it's easy. So I go to Ty and say, hey, I'm hurt. We're not spending enough time together. He's like, hey, I'm stressed because I'm working so much, or I have so much on my plate. So you can always go to your partner with what you're feeling, but you also have to understand their side of it. You really, really do, because it's not going to be the same. And you have to be able, if you want them to sit and listen in an empathetic way, you have to do the same for them. And you have to understand that two situations can both exist at the same time and be true. Absolutely. And neither of them existing at the same time make the other one not true or less important. There's a duality. Absolutely. And both can exist at the same time. And that was huge for me.
Oh, I think that's such an important thing to share and to remind people of, is that, in a partnership, you are two completely unique individuals. And I remember in the early days of mine and Mike's relationship, I really felt like, A, I had won the jackpot with this man, and B, that he was rising so fast in his career, and I was just, working hard in school, and I really felt like I lived in his shadow, and I didn't feel like I had really my kind of identity and sense of purpose. And I really don't think I found that individuality on my own until I became a mom and realized that, you know, I need to be me for them. They don't need me to be somebody that I think I should be, or another version of their dad. Like, they just need me to be my whole authentic self. And I just kind of had this realization where everybody was better when I just gave myself that time and energy, right? Like, it was a really cool realization in life, and I think has served our marriage ever since, because the more I become comfortable with myself, the more I see my husband become comfortable with his self, and the more we're just kind of comfortable together, in the sense of like, okay, we can face some pretty big shit, but we know that we're gonna be okay.
Yeah, so for me, I actually like feel a little opposite, is like I lost myself when I had kids.
Aww.
Because I was so engulfed in being their mom, and I totally agree with them seeing the authentic, real version of you, not the Stepford wife version. But I so relate to the shadow.
Aww,
Tyler casts a really big shadow.
He does, yeah.
And it's a beautiful shadow to live in, don't get me wrong. It's great, but it's so hard, and it's still, like, I'm in it still, he walks out the door every day and fills his passion cup up and stresses himself out. Like, there's so many cons to what he does as well, for, like, he carries the world on his shoulders for stress. But yeah, I still live in the shadow of, you know, Tyler being such a big entrepreneur, but he has realized that, I think. Like, we've never really had the solid conversation about it, but I think he knows, and he is so on my side. Whenever I want to do something, whether it's yoga, whether it's shameless ambition, whether it's podcasting, whether he's like, how do I support you? Totally. And how do I make it great for you? So he's never one to want to keep me in his shadow or intend for me to be in his shadow. He wants me casting the shadow right beside him.
Totally.
But I can't help but feel that way, because he is such a strong entrepreneur and so business busy, making such a huge impact in the industry that we're in, that it's hard not to. But again, like, he supports me wherever I need to, and wherever he needs to support me. So,
well, and I have to say, it's been really beautiful to watch you step back into on-site over the last year, just because, like, you did step away for a few years, and
we were going to get a divorce.
Yeah, you were heavily involved in that business for the first few years of it, and then you just had to make a different choice for a while, and I respect the heck out of you guys for making that choice.
It was a tough one.
And protecting your relationship and your family first, but honestly, bud, like, I have watched Tyler just be so proud of you at everything that you've done this year, and just he's
my biggest cheerleader.
He's your biggest cheerleader,
for sure.
And and that's like Mike. He's my biggest cheerleader too, and I think some days maybe he feels like he's in my shadow sometimes these days, but I think that we are mature enough in our relationship, and we understand that each other's gifts are a gift to each other, and my success is his success is my success. Like, there's no competition, no comparison, no jealousy. If anything, the only thing I long for is time together, right? Which for ambitious couples can be very, very hard. So
no, I fully agree. Like, and it goes to say, like, people grow at different times. People are going through things at different times, right? So you talked about when you and Mike were first together, having like, you felt like you were in his shadow because he was growing, right? Like, the business, all these things, and now it's your turn to shine, kind of a little bit, right? Like, when you're in this dynamic partnership where you both just support each other and love each other and know that it's a unit, not like a singular working against each other, it's a unit. It's totally okay for the other person to take the spotlight. You're like, peace, take it. I'm gonna be back here with the kids, let me know if you need me.
This one's yours for now, love you, honey.
Right?
Bye.
And you share in their success. Like, I know every award, every acknowledgement, every success that Ty makes, I feel like it's partially mine because I also make the sacrifice.
Right.
So there's it's worth it. It's worth it to see them shine. It's worth it to see them happy and feel accomplished. And yeah, you just have to have some patience.
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head with, what it means to support an ambitious partner by having that mentality of that when he wins, you win.
Yeah.
When it is partially yours because his life exists the way that it does because you help create that and vice versa.
Yeah.
So it's just important to recognize each other's strengths and celebrate our successes and cheer each other on. Because if we can't do that, how the hell are we going to support each other through the low moments?
And appreciation on the other end to the partner too, who is supporting you, right? Like that public or whatever acknowledgement you need to do, whether it's you're receiving an award or for Ty, like he makes a ton of LinkedIn videos. So whenever he throws me in there and he's like, love you, like thanks for, holding down the fort, that makes me feel good. I'm like, okay, I'm doing what I need to do.
Exactly.
We're in this. He's recognizing me. He's seeing me. I feel heard. I feel, the things I need to. So it's important too on the flip side. If you're the one in the spotlight, if you're the one doing the growing, if you're the one being in the more ambitious push right now, to always throw that appreciation back.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, I just think it's so cool that you and Ty have found a way to grow in your own ways together in the company and then also in your own passions and your own interests. And one exciting thing that I would like to share is that I'm officially growing with Mike at S3, and moving forward I have taken over all of the events and marketing for our business. And let me tell you what, girlfriends, it's about time. We've had this business together for almost 15 years, and I've had kind of small roles over time, but this is the first time I'm stepping in a way that allows me to just kind of swing my own weight around and bring my own strengths and really make a difference in our business and work on a path where we're able to grow together. Like, I'll never forget when I was in financial services, I felt like Mike and I were living on different planets. We were doing completely different things, having completely different conversations, going to completely different events. We were, I honestly
would much prefer the snowboarding event over financial planning. Oh my.
I'm just here for the après, girlfriends. I would way rather spend my life building our passion in snowboarding and with our family and our daughters. And it's just, it's where we met, right? Like it's literally such a part of our souls and who we are that, like, of course it makes sense. And I just am so grateful that for all the fights that we had during that time where I felt like we were living on different planets, that we were able to come out of it and recognize that we do want to grow together, that our ambition is more successful together. We can do so much more together rather than fighting against one another. And I think when you have a really good relationship with your spouse, that you would want to work together. Yeah.
So alignment of goals is huge, right?
Yeah,
so that's,
absolutely.
I have that wrote down. And so just like Lynn said, I started on site with Ty and Kyle.